NFTs, digital to physical Roundtrip, bringing the Metaverse back to reality.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We are here talking about NFTs, looking at the digital and physical connection, what that means, jurisdiction, structure, formats, tokenization, all the fun stuff, but really understanding how does the digital format of NFTs relate to physical and real-world assets and real-world outcomes. So we have an amazing panel. We're going to keep it an open discussion format. I'm Mike Prasad. I'm the co-founder of Every Creator. We're a marketplace and storefront for any creator to make and publish digital objects. And we have an amazing lineup here. Everyone could just kind of go down starting at the end and just tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the questions. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Eduardo. I'm a Brazilian lawyer responsible for the crypto law desk in VDV Lawyers and specialized in international tax law and regulatory aspects of offering crypto all around the world.
Hi, my name is Laura Scarlett Martin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Matrix Mortgage Global. We're the first and only mortgage brokerage in Canada to accept cryptocurrency for down payment, as well as the CEO of Lingo Learn, and we'll be offering our certifications as an NFT as well.
Hi, my name's Stephen Dryall. I'm here under CTO of Cover Technologies Incorporated. In terms of the stuff I do a lot of crypto stuff, blockchain stuff, metaverse stuff, and I just want to say quickly, today the stuff I'm talking about are all personal views, hypothetical fantasy stuff. I'm not speaking on behalf of any business interests whatsoever, so anything I talk about, because Cover Technologies is a publicly traded company, so I'm really here just to talk about wonderful, crazy stuff in my brain. So let's see how that works out.
No, I love it, I love it. I think that's what we need in the space, is just really just making some connections that most people don't, and that's important. I think everyone here has different experiences. So there's sort of three areas I want to cover. We're going to talk about, one, the legal and jurisdiction and enforcement. We're going to talk about tying back digital assets to traditional assets like mortgages and real estate. And I also want to delve into what are the crazy things around digital and physical that is possible, and what can that enable in like a creator economy or in other economies. So let's start with something that most people know about, with mortgages. Mortgages, real estate. The nature of that type of products, it is high value, high frequency. It is present in all markets. It is a traditional asset and it's tied to a physical real estate. What do you see happening in what you're doing in this space, Laura, with how that maps to a digital environment, whether it's an NFT as a token or even in the metaverse?
Great question. So let's start with something like a land title. So there's a lot of projects going on in developing nations like Cambodia, for instance. I was working on a project where they're looking to bring land title to the blockchain for purposes such as, well, you know, someone can't go and raid you and take your land title like ye old times. So that's one thing. But what we're coming across as an issue with land title as an NFT is buy-in from the governments. So we're really at a landlock there until there's consensus around that. What does seem to be more, closer to the mark is the MLS system, which is what realtors use to look up real estate. I was discussing with the president of the Toronto Real Estate Board what they're doing with MLS, and they're putting it into the Web3 system. So instead of your typical Boolean search, where you'd say, give me a property that's $1 million in Toronto in the downtown core area, you're going to be able to now say, hey, give me $1 million or under property with a white kitchen. And that can be done through audio as opposed to Boolean logic search. So much smarter searching, and of course you're going to have more verified listings so they won't be expired and things like that.
So much more contextualized, I think, which is really key. You talked about the buy-in from the government, right? So MLS is a listing service. The data is there, adding more contextuality to it, even more experiential sides to it. Makes perfect sense. Buy-in from government is a very decidedly non-Web 3.0 scenario.
I know,
right?
it sucks.
It relies on borders in a borderless environment, right? So think about legal, so enforcement.
Yeah.
When you talk about that scenario, when you're mapping and twinning digital objects to physical things that require on-the-ground enforceability within specific jurisdictions, what are some of the challenges and solutions and thoughts you have about that in terms of implementation?
Okay. First thing, when we deal with legal issues related to NFTs, the first thing we should have in mind is defining an NFT by the legal perspective. Sometimes people make a little bit of mistakes, but NFT, at least from the legal perspective, we could say that's just a certificate of ownership. That would be, even by the technical perspective, maybe he will tell you more better than me. But the thing is, sometimes people use NFTs to avoid the characterization of securities. We know that when we are talking about securities, you have to be registered not only in the place that your company is incorporated, but also in the place that you offer your products. So if in this example, this NFT could be related to could be qualified as a security, applying Howey test, as we know, or maybe the Reeves test, this product could not be offered in that jurisdiction. So that's the problem. How to enforce the law of, for example, Brazilian jurisdiction related to an NFT that is borderless, but is related to an off-chain asset that would be a real estate in another country. So jurisdictions are thinking about many ways to try to enforce, and how do they do that? They take all the intermediaries that they can. For example, in Brazil, there's a recent case that an Australian exchange was offering a product that was a security and was not registered under Brazilian SAC. So what they did, do not offer this product, and if any person, natural or legal entity, offer this product here in my country, this person will be responsible for all fees and penalties. So maybe they cannot reach your company, but they will do ways to avoid your product to be in that country.
So really what you're saying is it's sort of a similar approach to what a lot of the jurisdictions do with crypto, is that when you're cashing in and out, so the on-ramp, off-ramp between digital and physical, and that's what's being enforced with either KYC or looking at the conversion. Is that sort of a good summary?
Yeah, KYC is a very big important issue, because we could, at least many jurisdictions out there, you can get liable not just if you are offering, but as you are the place that offers this type of product. We know the recent Uniswap case that started, that it's SAC, American SAC, I believe, they are saying that should be responsible for selling things without proper KYC. So this is a very important issue. So you have tax issues, regulatory issues, and KYC issues. If you do a good KYC, maybe you could avoid them. But do a good KYC, it's very hard when you consider decentralized exchanges. Okay.
That makes sense. Now, what I think is sort of pro or con, the ideal situation is that the technologies behind blockchain become adopted in part of every single day life. Now, the world is decentralized, and that world is very decentralized, but we are very centralized physical people, right? So when it comes to those problems that you both just identified, there's probably opportunities in that, right? In providing easy turnkey access, enforceability, and therefore seamlessness, and making it accessible to the average person. And that's kind of, Laura, what your company is doing a little bit, correct, in terms of the mortgage and stuff?
Yeah, well, sorry, can you repeat that? You're talking about accessibility a bit.
So accessibility, right? Like there's an opportunity to take these friction points, making them practical in everyday life.
Yes.
As we mature to a more integrated digital physical sort of overlay.
Yeah, there's a couple exciting use cases. One of them, of course, is like fractional ownership properties. So right now, people will buy properly, for instance. They are creating opportunities for people to get into the housing market, which we all know is virtually impossible for the average person to enter, with $1.5 million being the average detached home in Toronto costing. So you would need a minimum of 10% down payment to enter that market. We're talking $150,000. Who has $150,000 saved up after student debt, after everything else? So with certain fractional ownership programs, you can get in with as low as $500 and benefit from the appreciation from a real asset. Meanwhile, you've bought in potentially as an NFT or with your cryptocurrency, and your NFT or crypto is going up in appreciation alongside that physical asset. There is a second really interesting one, appraisals. So the way that property is valued, the system is not objective. You'll have one appraiser go in and they'll look at the data and say, this house is worth 1.5 million. Meanwhile, you'll have another appraiser come in and they'll come up with a different value for various different reasons. There is known bias in the appraisal process. So if it is a person of color, then you're probably going to get a lower property value. Unfortunately, the data is there to confirm this. So we're seeing with these things being in the blockchain and in the metaverse is you're going to start getting more objective valuations for properties and sort of democratizing and equalizing these sorts of things. So I think I like that most.
And you'll probably see more dynamics as well as market dynamics also helping validate some of those valuations. Interesting.
Yeah, better data.
Now, Steven, I saw you kind of raise the mic. What do you got?
It's a lot of interesting. I think because you started to touch on the subjects of coming back into the real world with Metaverse, and that's some of the stuff that gets me, excited or interested in applications. And so certainly the mortgage applications are very interesting from a number of different perspectives, whether it be technology or compliance or just the mechanics of how you do that stuff, and the practical side where it's very easy to conceive a wonderful digital concept, a metaverse thing, or even a cryptocurrency thing, whatever, magical digital internet whatevers. But then as soon as you start to try and bring that back into the real world, and it always comes back to that, and since Bitcoin began, people were trading Bitcoin for fiat currencies was incredibly difficult, and people who couldn't do that would trade it for other stuff. And this has always been the case with, basically comes back to barter in a lot of ways. So now, barter being, the oldest way of trading, but we have these digital technology things that do these amazing things that we can also trade without borders, but physical stuff, and and we have legal issues and jurisdictional things, and there's all these amazing concepts that exist, but yet these little tiny bits that seem small or insignificant, or it was just you just cash out for money. Okay, if I'm going to convert $1 million worth of crypto into $1 million worth of cash, or if I want to take $1 million payment for that, or any of those kind of, say we dealt with concepts centering around like cannabis, for example, which is legal here, but bridging, digital cannabis and crypto over to physical cannabis through licensing regimes, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of challenges there, but I'm always a fan of, challenges represent opportunities, and in crypto, there are some opportunities that I think a lot of people haven't even begun to fathom in terms of how they could even unroll, never mind, what it could do, how much money you can make, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And you want to share any of those insights? What areas do you think are exciting that you think people haven't really touched yet?
I think the cannabis stuff is still interesting because we're the only legal country that's doing anything in terms of volume. America, there's a lot of states that are coming aboard. They're still not federally legal, but once they go federally legal, which it's inevitable, it'll happen. It's just a question of how long it'll take. And then once we start to see other jurisdictions coming into the legal side of things, that gets interesting because you can there's a homogenization potential for cannabis products. And then when you use that model and then potentially apply that to other things. So one of the common examples I like to use in previous talks I've done is I talk about cookies, right? So imagine you had whatever, a crypto or NFT or whatever that represented a cookie. You have chocolate chip and oatmeal and all this kind of stuff, and I have cookies and you have chocolate chip. What's a cookie worth? How many chocolate chip cookies for an oatmeal versus a macaron or whatever, and then what's that cookie worth in a different country? It sounds stupid in a lot of ways, but a cookie can be substituted for anything. It can be substituted for cannabis. It could be substituted for precious metals. It's endless, and that makes it.
Well, so I want to dive into that a little bit because it's an area that I'm working in as well, and I have a lot of interest. And I think you touched on a point, which is there's a potential for any type of object to be digitally twinned and then traded or exchanged. And the idea is that, yes, historically, the human race has created layers upon layers of abstraction in a supply chain or transaction chain to get what people want, but every layer of abstraction creates diluted value. And so like, I may need something, you may need something, what I provide is not what you provide, so then I transfer it to a dollar, and that normalizes it, and then you go make dollar, and we exchange it and we buy what we need, right? But that creates so much dilution over the course of the changing hands, right? In a barter system, like you said, our exchange is, if we are exactly what we need, our exchange is a win-win for both sides, right? The value I provide you is higher and vice versa. So there's an opportunity with taking the idea of digital twins, of taking a physical object that in a normal supply chain and distribution system cannot be rapidly exchanged to the best possible match because the logistical nightmare is impossible in a physical scenario. Put that digitally twin into a virtual environment and then allow the right holder of one to get to the right holder of the other to get the benefit they exactly need in the right matched way where there's the net win-win on both sides. There's both sides benefit in a way because of direct exchange, and then that can transfer back to the physical. So I think blending both of the things that would come up, I think there's an opportunity there. Now, that is something that I think that very few people have explored. But there's an opportunity, I think, when you're thinking about ways of how do you bridge the two, is that you can use the physical anchor, and look at cannabis, jurisdictions, and like in the US specifically, every state has different things, different distribution laws. All of those localized dispensaries, for example, they are stuck with their local business. And the problem with that is that it's really labor and cost intensive for them to scale. Now, if you can create a system that took the cannabis as an item across the entire market, but it had the redemption locally, maintaining the laws and restrictions, you're now scaling and allowing the exchange to happen in a borderless environment, but the redemption to happen in a hyper-local environment, benefiting both sides of the equation, including the local business. And so I think, really on everything we talked about, right? You got to find ways to comply with the jurisdiction in the legislature, with the accessibility, and with the digital twinning and advantages unique to both environments in a way that is beneficial on both sides. It's kind of cool.
I think that the real conundrum is going to be with things like gambling, right? So gambling is illegal in Brazil, is what Eduardo said. But meanwhile, you can go and hop on numerous sites and platforms that will allow you to gamble. And okay, well, if you have a VPN or an anonymous account, who's to say that it's legal or not illegal, or at least they can't catch you doing it? So, I mean, what then?
Yeah. Yesterday,
well,
when we...
right? Like if it's happening in a digital environment, it's technically borderless until redemption, right?
Yeah, let's see something very interesting. When we met yesterday at the registration. We started to make some drawings about, let's imagine a casino in the Metaverse, for example. Brazilian jurisdiction could say, okay, this is a casino, or it could be just an environment with smart contracts structured with the if-then function, okay, and the tokens there are just tokens. So you should get a payment license, you should have a financial license, or it's just be a software that's ruling some stuff, you know. But in other jurisdictions, you wouldn't have this kind of concern because gambling is legal. So whatever, if it's gambling, if it's a casino, or if it's a software, you can do it in my jurisdiction. So you struggle innovation. If I try to buy one of your mortgages, of your example, maybe I could face some trouble, even though I want, but I could face some trouble. So sometimes jurisdictions, they struggle innovation in the contrary way of crypto, in my opinion.
And then how do you do capital gains, right? What jurisdiction taxes your capital gains? If the
imagine
hopefully
this casino.
not Canada.
Yeah. Not Canada.
Imagine this casino. Every time I bet, I would have to pay capital gains because I'm just selling crypto, but it's not true.
But there's opportunity, right? In that you can, potentially, it is technology, it is smart contracts, smart being the key word here, right? So there's opportunities to create environments and conversions. So, okay, if I'm betting in this virtual casino, but I'm moving it somewhere else, and I'm not converts based on my jurisdiction to something else that could then be transferable or bartered out. So maybe I'm taking something. You go to Vegas, you gamble in Vegas, you win, it's legal there, you take it back home to Canada, or vice versa, whatever. You can probably build equipments like that in bridges within the market. So we're out of time, but I really want to thank you all for this great conversation. I think there's a lot of interesting linking between the ideas presented. And so as mentioned, I think there's a lot of opportunities in how digital and physical bridge together, and I think not just opportunities, but things that have to happen. So definitely give everyone a follow online, look them up, and thank you all for listening.
Thank
Thank you.